This episode of The Republic is brought to you by World of Tanks. Go to gboffer.com/tanks to sign up. It's free to play, guys.
Game Breaker TV.
You are watching the first and longest running new media broadcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Welcome to Game Breakers The Republic. You will never need to listen to any other Old Republic podcast ever again. Oh, who were they kidding? They're just a bunch of nerds geeking out about the Old Republic on the internet. But here's your host, back from picking up power converters from Tashi Station. It's Larry Everett.
Yeah, hello everybody. You are watching The Republic. I'm Larry Everett, and this is number 187 on September the 11th, 2014. Thanks everybody for watching, and today we are talking about, let's see, update 2.1 is live, or sorry, 2.10 is live, and we also make Star Wars punny, and we unravel the SWTOR code. And speaking of which, I'd like to introduce my first guest for today. We have SWTOR Miner, and we had to, as you can see, we had to hide his identity from the SIS because they're after him if they find out what he does.
Yeah, don't mind me if I'm turning off to the right and looking. My monitor's like 3 foot away from my face, so the light doesn't,
The light's not hitting his face. How's the witness protection program working out for you there?
It's pretty good, I'm glad that I don't have to use the voice modulator anymore, because it kind of made it awkward.
All right, well, I'd also like to introduce all the way from the very first podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic, that Road guy from ToroCast. It is Road. How's it going, Road?
Good evening, everyone. How's the chat doing? How are you doing? How's Miter doing? It's like we just talked.
It is like we just talked. Like we've been talking for the last hour or so. But how are things on ToroCast? It's been I was on ToroCast for like a long time ago with Musco and Sam. How's it going?
Things have changed a lot since then.
I'm sure
We've
it has.
gone through a lot of people. But now it's me. Well, it has been me for the last 2 and some odd years.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You've been on. Yeah, I've been listening to you for I guess it's been 2 years now. It's been 2 years. It's been 2 years. Imagine that. That's a long time for one game.
Oh yes.
All right.
It's 2 years.
In fact, it is mathematically. It is 2 years exactly. That's excellent. So we have our top story today. Let's just dive right into this. Our top story today is that 2.1 is live, and it introduced us to the Rakata Prime Flashpoint, right? And we all remember like Rakata Prime from KOTOR, right? Everybody in this little circle here has played KOTOR at least once and got the start.
No, Larry, explain to me what Rakata Prime is.
Really?
I've never played KOTOR before.
That's
played.
so bad. Get off the show. No, it's so okay. So what do we know about since we've got a couple of lore people here. Road is huge into the lore. Yep, exactly. And I don't know what Miner does. I mean, obviously he digs into the
Nobody
code.
does. It just happens.
Yeah,
It's like a working of the Force. And the pre-science version of the Force before that guy destroyed his own universe.
Right. What so what do we know about Rakata? Rakata Prime. Obviously, the Rakata came from there. It's not cheese.
Okay. Well, as you know, the Rakata were the ones that formed the Infinite Empire, and they reigned for, what was it, 20,000 years or something like that?
At least.
Something crazy like that.
It was a long time.
All of them were Force sensitive. They had technology based on Force sensitive force sensitivity. Most of their equipment allowed people to tap into the force or worked through the force in some way. And this made them extremely powerful, and they ruled pretty much with an iron fist across the entire galaxy.
They were dark side. They used the dark side of the force, like.
Well, they used both sides of the force. They were sort of gray, I would say. Like,
well, that's getting into a whole territory of discussion in and all of itself when it comes to the force, because the force is neither dark nor light. Yeah. It's entirely based on how it's used, just like the Cellcath, just like the Voss, and like the original Sith before the Dark Jedi came and cast their influence over them. It was all in how it was used and how it was interpreted.
Yeah,
but
the light side
they used mostly the dark side.
Yeah, the light side dark side distinction was more with the Jedi, and they're the ones that sort of drew the line.
Okay, given the images that we saw last week, I mean, you guys didn't see the show, but I'm assuming that you saw all the images that they released at the Cantina. What was this? What we were expecting? Were we expecting just a flashpoint? I mean, was this? I mean, because I got to admit myself, I was a little bit. I mean, although I didn't hear about anything more than a flashpoint, I was kind of hoping for maybe a little bit more, kind of like Manon is, but all we got was a flashpoint. What were you got? Was that what you were expecting? What were your guys' thoughts on that?
It was exactly what I was expecting, because it's what's been in there since.
That's right, because you take apart the code.
It's what's been in there since like 2.4. Like it's not all been in there, but there's been enough pieces in there to put together what was happening. You know, so I knew it was just going to be a flashpoint. And what's crazy is we'll discuss it later. It was actually, the whole area was slated for another purpose. Yeah. It wasn't originally developed as a flashpoint area. So,
Rode, what were you thinking about the flashpoint? Was it what you were looking for, more or less?
It's what I expected, and that's even before getting the obvious answers from SWTOR Miner himself. But taking a look back at Part 1 of Forged Alliances, you had 2 flashpoints, and right there was a gateway. And if you actually look on a map, you can see on the other side there's also a set of 3 other doors, which could be opened up at any time to be like any of their other mission drop locations for any of the other flashpoint locations. So I was actually kind of already expecting that for Forged Alliances Part 2, which then we got Manon.
Right.
And so looking back at Part 3, having one more flashpoint to go into that otherwise unused gateway just kind of made sense.
Yeah. I can definitely see that, and I think that now I've played through it only a couple of times, and I've only played it on the Imperial side, but I'm assuming that it's pretty much the same thing on both sides, right? It's not. They didn't do a different flashpoint.
There's a little bit
the exact same thing.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more exposition, I believe, on the Imperial side at the load up, because obviously Lana's force sensitive and Theron is not.
Yeah.
And see, I felt like you got more information as a whole from the Republic side, just because of Theron's own knowledge of Revan, plus, I played as the Jedi Knight when I did it, who's obviously has ties at the core of the class story to Revan.
Yeah. Yes. So, okay, so beyond the story, which we'll actually talk a little bit more about the story later on in the podcast here. But I do want to talk about the mechanics of the fight. I know that I'm part of a guild that does quite a bit of raiding, and so whenever we initially went into the fight, or each one of the individual fights, they were kind of, that's nice. Now it might have been a little bit more difficult. I mean, for me personally, I think it was on the easy side. Now I understand that it's tactical and stuff like that, which we can talk about some of the other sides of tactical flashpoints and whatnot in a bit. But I'm really kind of surprised that the mechanics were easy. Now, did you guys find them as quick to overcome, or is that just because of gear situations? Rode, what do you think?
No, it being just that it was a tactical, it was incredibly easy. And the second time that I ran with my operative healer, which is running around in, I think the best gear he's got is 162s.
Okay.
So really kind of garbage. And I was able to heal that without ever letting anyone in my party drop below probably 75%. And that's when I was just kind of, watching TV while actually healing.
Was that now was that just? Do you think that it's underpowered, or do you think that was completely intentional? Because I'll admit though, I can't say this with the tactical flashpoints for Tython and Korriban, because I was able to actually two-man those, but I think we were in 180s even at that time. Is that just? Do you think that it was intentionally mechanically low so that and is there any way to? Do you think that having lower gear that it'd be more of a challenge or more fun, I guess, mechanically, or more like you'd have to, because I had to just bypass the mechanics. It didn't really matter what the guys were doing. It just I was able to just mow over everything. Do you think that?
No, by being a tactical at its core means there's no difficulty. It really is the easiest content in the game right now. I mean, maybe if you went in there at level 50, which I don't think you can do because it's the 55 flashpoint.
Yeah.
It would probably be difficult then, just by the fact that you'd have 5 levels higher in content than what you are yourself, even in the best level 50 gear. But tacticals aren't meant to be hard. They're meant to be something that are without any real formation of party. I mean, the first time I ran it, I queued up with the group finder, and I got 4 DPS.
Mm-hmm.
So it's meant that you can just throw anyone who wants to queue up for it into that and still succeed.
They even mentioned.
Go ahead.
I was going to say they even mentioned on their stream the end boss of Manon had a timer for his enrage, so to speak, and if you did a 4-person healer party, if you queued in under that condition, they said it was designed so that you could clear it and still not enrage with 4 healers.
Well, yeah, I've never seen that enrage. I didn't even know it had an enrage timer. I know that it said that it did, but I wasn't sure if that was an actual timer, because I never sat around long enough in Manon for that to happen. Now, but on the same token though, do you think we will see? Now, I'll ask this one of Miner, because he can see further in the future than anybody else can. Do you think we will see any kind of like hard mode versions of these flashpoints, all the Forged Alliance flashpoints, similar to the way we saw like CZ198, or do you think they'll just stay tactical because these are storyline flashpoints?
They have some of the conversation dialogue for hard modes in there already. Now, I haven't gone through because I'm lazy about some of this stuff sometimes, and checked all the abilities, and I could tell you if they had hard mode only abilities on the bosses and stuff like that, and what they were and what they did and stuff. But I said lazy sometimes about some of the stuff. It's not like it's data that's really necessary up front. People love the images.
Yes, they do. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think Road, are they going to do that soon? They're going to put in hard modes?
They'd better. But even then, from what I understand, I can't even remember if I ran the hard modes of the previous versions, except for on PTS.
Yeah.
But they're just a walk in the park.
Yeah.
And I don't have great gear on really any of my characters. I think. No, one character is decently geared, but not augmented, so still crap. And I can still walk through those.
I know that. Okay, so one of the things that makes the tacticals fun. Okay, so just tacticals in general. What it makes fun for me is that you can just take whatever kind of groups of characters and throw them into the situation. However, at the same time, I do like content to be a little bit more difficult, and I would like to see. I just what I think is missing from these flashpoints, and I think they need to add a little bit more to them. Even the tactical ones. Manon is actually a little bit closer to what I would like to see, is more mechanics. Okay, if you're going to overrule the idea that you're not going to have a perfect group together, there should be some sort of mechanic that you have to overcome. Like Manon, for instance, with the shields on that first boss, and with the and then the last boss having to drag him through the fire and that sort of thing. Would you be more satisfied with the tactical if something like that happened? Go ahead, Miner.
I was just gonna say, it all comes down to who designed the fight. Like, different designers prefer different types of encounters, and since, obviously one designer can't design all the fights in the game, you're going to get some variation fight to fight in difficulty, or what you think's difficult may not be what everybody else thinks is difficult. So there's going to be some variation there, and it's all about, like, they have a stupid shield on the first boss of Manon.
Yeah.
It locks people out, and that's a whole other difficulty factor there. But then you got things like Tython. If you're a stealth character, you can solo Tython in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But try to do that to Manon, you can't do that.
Right.
Stealth detection, a great mechanic that should be put throughout the rest of the game.
I kind of agree to a point. Playing a Marauder, I have to plow through everything. Even with camouflage, it's hard to get past some things. So since we do have some story guys on here, what's our story without giving anything major? What are we dealing with on the story? What led up to it? I know the Empire side. I'm not exactly sure of everything on the Republic side. Why don't you go, Road? Tell us a little bit about what happens on the Republic side that leads us up.
All right, are we starting all the way at Forged Alliances 1 or just in Part 3?
Yeah, well, most of us know what happened in Forged Alliance 1. What happened in Manon that led us up to Rakata Prime on the Republic side?
Well, actually, it's if you look at it from the Empire side, it's identical to the Republic side. Your one contact through the Republic angle, which is Theron Shan, Steel Shan's son and descendant of Revan.
Yeah.
He contacts you, asks you, has a secret meeting, and then sends you forth off to Rakata Prime to track down where Arcus and Colonel Derek.
Derek. Yep.
Derek. Yeah. Track them down because that's where they're supposedly gathering and creating their new infinite army through shards of the recovered Starforge, which Revan destroyed 300 years prior.
All right.
So you're sent, just like on the Imperial side, off to stop them from taking over the galaxy or forming their army. It's a preemptive strike. They don't know you're coming, but probably suspect that since you foiled their plans 2 times in a row, you're probably going to try it again.
But more than that, Road, you're not. If you just wanted to destroy them, they could just orbitally bombard the planet. Like, you're there to find out what is going on. You know, you're just killing the leaders isn't anything. You got to find out why they're trying to do this.
Oh, absolutely. And what we end up finding out through all this is that we're not just dealing with masterminds; we're dealing with fanatics. And you can't capture a fanatic. It's either they win or they die. There's no in between. And that goes with their soldiers, with their leaders, everyone through here. So really, we would have been better off just bombarding the hell out of them.
Yep.
Well, do you think that would have...
Isn't that always the case?
Would that have done it, though? Bombard... I mean, obviously... I guess we
could
have.
From a story standpoint, no. Because, if you're looking at war, if you're looking at espionage, in every situation, unless you have a body, you have no proof.
That's right.
And if you've incinerated them, how do you prove you actually killed them? There's nothing left.
Right, that's true.
And
we don't...
Also...
Go ahead.
The Rakata technology is... The Rakata technology is self-repairing, too.
Yes,
yeah. Good point.
Yeah, so,
obviously, because they're using shards of the Starforge.
Right, exactly. So there's no way... Well, and on top, I mean, if we were to just have bombarded it, like, when it was one of the suggestions, we wouldn't have been able to, it wouldn't have worked, and also we wouldn't have been able to find out what was actually going on, which is important because you kind of need to know what your enemy is doing, right? I mean, just to blow them up doesn't necessarily solve the problem, especially because you don't know how big. Well, you don't know how big the thing is. You assume that it is Derek and Arcus that are controlling this whole thing, but you don't know that. it's if you knew they were on the planet, you assumed, and you blew, and let's say you actually did kill them by bombarding it, we know that wouldn't have ended it, right? And the truth is, we wouldn't. Our characters wouldn't have known that either. But that's leading into spoiler territory, and so we'll shave that off and wait till the end for the for the big spoilers. So let me go ahead and let me ask about the actual, because one of the things that SWTOR Miner pointed out to me before the show was the Tor head leaks, like the ones that were at the very beginning. Like, what was that? 2 weeks into the after launch or something?
1.1.
Yeah, it was really close after launch. People saw these leaks. Tell me about that. What was in those leaks, and how do they relate to what we're seeing now with Rakata Prime?
Well, in those leaks, and they were the very earliest, what they called quarterly updates that they were working on for the game, and they had the 1.2, the 1.3, the 1.4, and the 1.5 quarterly updates. So it was like a year and a quarter, year and a half worth of content that they were working on. Wasn't all completed. It was just a framework of stuff like S&D was in there, TFB, all the stuff was in there at the time. Even some stuff that we haven't seen yet. And what's interesting is Rakata Prime was one of the areas that was originally slated to be in the 1.5 update, but not as a flashpoint, as a daily area of sorts. And the story revolved around, let me see if I get this right, as a fallen Jedi, not the one that people may think is currently involved in the Rakata Prime flashpoint. But it was related to the Dreadmaster storyline, because the fallen Jedi was a thrall of the Dreadmasters, and you were trying to stop them on both sides. And that's what the asset started out as. But now they turned it into a flashpoint, and they sort of have an interesting story going on too.
So basically, all of this Rakata stuff, we can't say that all of it was already done before the game was launched, can we?
No, they rather than entirely reusing it, they repurposed some of the story, and then they reworked the assets a little bit. So, like, the story involved this fallen Jedi collecting pieces of Rakata technology to help the Dreadmasters, and they wanted to use it as a weapon. So now the Dreadmasters are all dealt with. Now they moved some of the story elements to the new path that they're taking in the SWTOR, you know.
So all right, so all of these assets, you're telling me then that all the assets and stuff that we see existed, like all the assets we have on Rakata, or
when they put stuff in the game, and
right.
like this Rakata Prime stuff has been in there for a while, but it's not all in there. They start with a framework and then you flesh it out. And it's in various stages of development when it ends up in the game files. To say that all this stuff was, complete shortly after launch, that's really not the case at all. Because Oricon was also one of the destinations. Mm-hmm. And even up until, it was crazy as I pointed this out, they had press images that they had put out on their website. And they had designed blockout markers in the background of the images where they wanted to put stuff. And there are these big blocks that have numbers on them,
right,
like where they should be putting stuff. And their press images had the designed blockout markers still in them.
Nice, very
so
nice.
The areas are still under development.
All right, so I'll ask this a road just for fun. Would you have expected the direction of the storyline? Would you have expected that this is the way it was going? Let's say a couple years from now, or years ago. Sorry, would you have expected this?
Well, anything involving these Revenites, I kind of would have expected, some kind of continuation of that.
Yeah.
But I would have expected it continued in the Empire story, since you initially deal with
right.
Revenites in the Empire side of the story. But, getting to Endgame and seeing nothing to do with them, kind of figured it was a lost lead, or maybe something they could have eventually picked up on, again, as they have.
Yeah.
But, not sure how far the spoilers were really going with the real antagonist, as it were. Yeah, I saw more of that story coming from a mile away.
Excellent. All right, so that's cool. I'm going to take a little break here to talk about World of Tanks. Oh, good. We can switch without. All right, excellent. I'm talking about World of Tanks here. That if you guys have not tried out World of Tanks, World of Tanks is our sponsor. It's free to play. Go to gboffer.com/tanks. Sign up there, and then it battle some stuff out. It is if you have not seen this trailer, I'm gonna switch over to this trailer. Hopefully it works, and you guys can just see how awesome World of Tanks is. Oh, let me turn up the volume a little bit. There we go. And although this is stop motion and stuff like that, they're capturing it in high res and whatnot. It does feel like this. This really does get the good feel of World of Tanks. You customize your tanks. 9.0 came out a little while back. I just love it. I love this trailer. And that's what it feels like. Exactly like this. And you're a tank. It's battlegrounds, basically. Anyway, that is it. That is World of Tanks for you guys. If you are interested in checking out World of Tanks, go to oops, not there. Go to gboffer.com/tanks and play for free. Now, another word from our sponsor.
Set course for Kashyyyk and ready the hyperdrive.
Master, I've got a question. So, how do you get into doors on Kashyyyk?
I don't know, how is that relevant?
With Wookiees. Get it? Wookiees.
Minion, I don't have time for that.
I've got another question. When is an academy student ready to learn about the dark side?
That is certainly not relevant right now.
In the 6th grade. Get it? In the 6th grade.
I have had just about enough of this.
Okay, I'm sorry. One more though. How is the Force like duct tape?
I don't want to know.
It has a dark side, a light side, and it binds the galaxy together.
Okay, one person in the chat room laughed at that. All right.
Those jokes are almost worse than mine.
Almost. I loved them. Good pun. Anyway, speaking of puns, no, it's actually not. I don't even have a segue for this. Anyway, let's since we have SWTOR Minor here, let's talk about what you do because some of the Game Breaker community aren't familiar with you. I don't know how, but they aren't. So, what exactly do you do, and where do you do it, and why do you do it? Go ahead.
Well, I guess I'm sort of the fly in the ointment. The guy, sitting in the back of the class, throwing spitballs at the board. It's like, hey, you made a mistake over there. Hey, when are you going to release this? Hey, sort of that. I tear the game piles apart. I look for stuff that they haven't announced or that might have slipped in there somehow, and I tell everybody that wants to know. So that's what I do.
So what kind of things have you revealed that you knew that we know now? I mean, we don't have necessarily talk about the current content.
Spoilers?
But yeah, let's not talk about the current content right now. But in the past, what kinds of things did you reveal to everybody and go, "Hey, look, here it is." And I revealed this to everybody first. What's the biggest one that you did that you can think of, or the most impressive one?
Um, there are so many that I just the conquest system. They kept pushing it back in the guild capital ships. They were not telling anything about it. They came out with the PTS for Galactic Strongholds, and they had just the player strongholds turned on. Didn't have any of the conquests or anything turned on at all, and I basically laid the system bare for people to look at, and boy did they like that.
So you knew exactly what was in the conquest, like
what
everything
the objectives
that was
were, what it was, when it was going to happen. I didn't know it at the time when it was going to happen, but there's a whole schedule in there, and the schedule ends on November 11th, so that's another interesting little thing that's in there.
So is it going to repeat then at November 11th, or what's
no? There has to be a patch on November 11th in order for the conquest system to function on the client side. So whether it's 2.10.1 or 2.10.2 or whatever we're at that point, or if it's 3.0, there has to be a patch on that day.
So you're thinking that. So your guess are you actually saying that 3.0 is coming out November 11th?
There is a 50-50 chance. That's all I'll give you.
That's not good odds. I can't bet on those odds.
Said November 11th, there will either be 3.0 or it'll be 10.1 or 10.2.
All right. Well,
I just want to point out that Greedo did bet on those odds and he lost. So.
Yes, I always shoot first.
He does.
So what kind of okay? Let me ask this of you then. What content did you reveal or put out there that never made it in?
My biggest mistake I would ever say I made was there's unfinished class story in the game that may or may never see the light of day, an official release. So it was originally slated for the 2.0 expansion. It looked like.
Yeah.
The quarterly updates led up to Rakata Prime, and we're just coming up on the point where it would have been story-wise. McKeb actually upset the story. McKeb was actually supposed to be a lot smaller of a story. It was supposed to be the Hut homeworld, Varl.
Right.
And they repurposed that whole story, and they expanded it and turned it into McKeb. And that sort of threw the whole other schedule out the window.
All right. So what are some things that are still in the client files? This is one thing that really interests me, mostly because of One Planet, and I'll get into that as we talk about it. But what are some of the things that are in the client files that we haven't seen yet, but are still there and maybe still might happen?
They did in some of their test nodes. There are abilities and different things related to a pod racing map. And it functioned very similar to a war zone, and pretty much 4 players race. There's power-ups, jumps, that sort of stuff. It seems I don't think the developer that was working on it is there anymore. So I don't know if somebody else is going to pick it up and make it functional. Because like KDY was in there for a long time in the test nodes before it finally came out as something that was for people to play.
So. What kind of this actually kind of threw me a little bit. So we had a whole other. So you haven't seen like Pazak or anything smaller than that? I mean, you had a pod racer. This was the big thing.
Just somebody. Well, see, a lot of these developers, they do tests of different things, and I assume that they put together a test. They put it into a meeting and say, here's what I got. And sometimes it accidentally gets passed out into the client. There was I forgot to put it in the notes, but related to the Nar Shaddaa nightlife event, there was a blackjack droid that was added in, and a chance cube game that was a conversation thing.
So how did these kinds of things end up in the files in the first place? That's what's kind of interesting to me. Do you know why that happened?
It's just they've got a repository for what they're working on, and it's like any other programmer out there could tell you exactly how it works. You want to work on something new for your program, you download whatever the latest version is off the server, create a local copy, make some changes, and then you commit it, and then it gets uploaded to the server and pushed out. And even the PTS client is slightly different in what it patches versus the live client. But somehow it got flagged, or it was with something else that got pushed live, and then it got pushed. So.
And you're there to exploit it.
I am there. I am all over it like a fat kid on diabetes.
So what did Rhoda? Let me ask you, dealing with this. I know what my thoughts are, but I'd like to hear you as another person that's really interested in story. When Miner releases some of these things, what are the things that you're looking forward to? Or I mean, what are you looking for whenever he releases stuff like this?
I mean, it's kind of a morbid level of fascination, which is why I've been interacting with him more and more recently, to try to get more information, see the direction where things are going, and see if they really are putting nearly as much effort into the game as I hope they are. If a little bit of the story gets spoiled along the way, it doesn't really bother me all that much.
So you're not one of those players or one of those lore guys that are like, oh, I don't want to know. I want to experience it myself. You'd rather know what's going to happen because you're. Why is that? Why were you interested in what's going to happen versus getting spoiled?
Well, on that note, it's not for me. It's not so much about the story itself as much as how it's presented. I mean, obviously the story is important, but if I already know what's going to happen ahead of time, then as long as the presentation to that information, where it actually comes from, is good enough, I don't care. That the presentation is just as important as the story itself. The experience, I mean, just looking at the original Star Wars movies, they didn't have the greatest special effects, but had one of the most life-changing stories in movie history. So it's about the presentation. But back on to the actual information itself, I mean, I don't even really know how to get into it. It's just, I really, more than anything, want to know that something's being done back there, because they're not giving us any information to go off of. I mean, a teaser for them is a blog with conversations between three people that you've never heard of.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I agree that, I mean, most of the stuff that Tor actually puts out is stuff that we don't necessarily care about, or maybe we're not in a position to care about it. Like, they haven't given us enough background information regarding these people to really, give a rat's ass as to why they're talking to each other.
And that right there is the core of foreshadowing, though.
Yeah.
I mean, something that we went, oh, that's kind of cool, 3 years ago, finally comes into play now, and it's just a big, oh, I get it moment.
Yeah.
So that's fine and all, but something a little more relevant and
like a mail message, a mail message from somebody that mentioned somebody that died.
Yeah.
And still actually is, alive.
Well, maybe.
I mean, beyond the current content that we're dealing with, you're right, Miner. The things that we get in email from, we've gotten stuff from Lana Benenko in email. We've got stuff from, I know as my Sith Warriors got stuff from the hand of the Emperor and things along that line. That makes things interesting to know, because we have a connection with those characters.
Well, I would pay very close attention to what the mail messages say.
Yeah.
Because they had, before Manon was out, they mentioned Manon.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're very, very tricky about what they're pushing right now. There are 2 messages right now, and I don't know if you want to get into that now.
We'll get it after the next break. We'll get into that, definitely.
All
right. So, but I do want to talk about one planet that you had in your notes here. Hopefully you don't mind me revealing it. But I have been pushing for Zyos to be in the game forever. Why is that cut? What happened? What was
That was one of the original expansion planets for 2.0 that was cut. I think it was one of the most incomplete out of all the 4 that were in there, because there were 4 originally, and there were Yavin 4, Bothui, Slaheron, and Zyust. And Bothui was Republic, Yavin 4 was both.
Yeah,
Zyust
that would make sense.
Zyust was Imperial only, and Slaheron, I believe, was both.
Well, that is highly disappointing. Hopefully,
But what was interesting is that, and what made me think that they were going to come out was in one of the consular stories, in the consular story in Bothui, they mentioned the events of McKeb, and that's what really made me think that they were eventually going to use this stuff. But we've not seen anything, and they might reuse some of this stuff, but I don't think we'll ever see full-on class stories ever again.
Yeah, well, they do have the Bothan, character model. It's there. They could, they can use them.
There's
still.
one.
There's one.
They're sort of like they're like Self-Cath, where they got to create the heads all individually. They can't. They're not like they're humans or even Cathar now, where they can create just random NPCs of them. No, they got to create each head individually.
Right. Well, speaking of lore, I do want to talk about Audible, because we do have an Audible offer. If you go to gboffer.com/audible, you can get 30 days free and a free audiobook. And right now, I know, hopefully I can go to my screen without it crashing. Yep, I can. Good. Right now I'm reading this. However, not everybody has time to read. If you can see what that is, it is A New Dawn. And not everybody has time to read it. I like to read, and this is kind of a thick book. And if you do a lot of traveling, I know a lot of people that use Audible as they're driving in their cars to work and whatnot, and they can read they can have a book read to them. And Audible is one of the best ways to do that. I recommend it. I know several people in my guild use it all the time. And I also recommend this book, A New Dawn. It's brand new. This is canon, pure canon, like the new stuff. Like, this relates to, most likely, from my understanding, I haven't read all of this, but there are kind of spoilers in here that actually lead into some of the stuff that's in the movies that are coming out next year. So check that out. And go to audible.com, go to gboffer.com/audible. Get New Dawn. It's read by Mark Thompson, great voice actor there. And so in talking about stories that lead into other stories, let's talk about some spoilers. We've got some spoilers coming up. So anybody that's not interested in hearing spoilers or anything along that line, you might want to, I don't know. We're going to kind of end out the stream this way with spoilers. So you can follow this guy on Twitter at SWTOR or SWTOR_miner. And you can follow this guy. Am I pointing to him? There he is, right there. This guy at That Road Guy on Twitter. And catch him on Reddit. Catch him on ToroCast. So we're going to finish this out with some spoilers. So here we go. Spoilers starting right now. Revan is back. And in a huge way. Right? What is going on here? Why is...
And he's actually a Cylon, too. I don't know if you saw him a picture on Twitter.
No, he's a Cylon?
No, I'm just joking with you. They did the whole thing with his visor. It's got a red light in his eyes now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move, but it's off to one side. It's half broken. So he looks like a Cylon from the front. Because you only ever see his back in the Flashpoint.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you only see the back, and you see the hologram in the front of him, but that's just a hologram.
Yeah.
And here's
not entirely true. Actually, if you watch it from the Republic side, you do actually get to see him aboard that Star Destroyer.
Yeah, but you see his back, though, right?
That's still... that's enough, though.
That's enough. See, the thing that concerns me, this is the thing that concerns me, is just the whole Revanite thing altogether. Because, all right, so both of you guys have played Imperial. You know the Revanite story. You know how that went in. Another spoiler alert. But if you've already been spoiled with Revan, so who cares? The end of the Revanite story, somebody is disguising themselves as Revan using a voice modulator, and because it's a woman that is the leader of the Revanites, and and then so they're using the hologram in disguise and all that kind of good stuff. So why couldn't this be somebody disguising himself as Revan, or herself as Revan, in fact? Go ahead,
That
Rev.
thought crossed my mind, but a lot of the information that's presented to you is stuff that only you, the player, and Revan, the entity, would know.
Go ahead, explain that to me. Go ahead.
Well, all right. So if you're playing from the Republic side, you've met Revan. In fact, if you're playing from the Empire side, you've met Revan.
Yes.
Now, with the Republic side, you set him free. He went off on his way and did his own thing, which then you conclude that story on the Empire side, where you kill Revan, supposedly, because you don't even get him all the way down to 0% health. Hits about 5%, then he explodes in purple lightning and disappears. So you really don't.
The boundary was merely a setback.
It was merely a setback. So you could say that he escaped heavily injured, because frankly, after being the Emperor's prisoner for 300 years and just going straight to business after being trapped there, mind battling with this 1,000-year-old entity, who knows exactly what percentage of his power he was at once he escaped there. And if he got defeated by 4 dorks playing a video game, odds are he probably wasn't really that powerful at that point in his life anyway. So now, one of the lines that he does say in the actual game after you've defeated his 2 lackeys is that he died for a moment. And then he was reborn. He was brought back. He took up an entirely new entity, a new form.
Yeah.
You know, he has superseded death. Maybe all that time spent mind battling with the Emperor taught him a lot. Like how the Emperor really is keeping himself alive for 1,000, 1,300 years, wherever he's at.
Right. Do you now one theory that's out there, because I mean you mentioned that the Emperor had kept him alive for hundreds of years and tortured him at the same time, and one of the theories is that Revan is actually now a host for the Emperor. Does that hold any water?
Not buying it.
I think it's possible, mainly because of the storyline that they reused from the Rakata Prime daily area, where the fallen Jedi was a thrall to the Dreadmasters, and if they're just like one-to-one replacing somebody, instead of being a thrall to the Dreadmasters, be a thrall to the Emperor.
Maybe.
You know?
Maybe.
Maybe he's sort of like, what's-his-face in Mass Effect, where Saren, in the first one, where he thinks he's doing good and he's working, with the Reapers, but really, he's being corrupted all along and he just didn't realize it.
Yeah, I'm actually, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to side with Road a little bit on this one, only because it doesn't seem within canon, or at least as far as we know of the story of the Emperor up to this point, for him to actually want to completely destroy what he's created and destroy the Republic at the same time. It seems a little bit of a turnaround as far as the character is concerned. Now, it is possible that, maybe BioWare is kind of fudging things a little bit, which is not unheard of. But, go ahead.
Well, we do know is that all the pureblood Sith need to die out.
Yeah.
And that we're not far off from when that needs to happen. So
that's a good point. Another thing that a lot of people really aren't taking, for those who have played the Jedi Knight story and who have read the Revan novel, they know about how Scourge betrayed Revan and Mira, was that her name? The entity, which is who you encounter in the
Mitra.
Mitra, that's it, Mitra. So we know that he did that because he had a vision and he saw that in the future, not at the present, that another Jedi would be the one to step up and slap down the Emperor. Now, as we learn through the Warrior story, that was not the Emperor, that was the voice of the Emperor.
Yes.
So that shows that, Scourge's vision wasn't complete, but at the same time, it still continues on this vision that the Jedi Knight or someone along those lines still could step up to that point. Now, another thing that Revan has unique knowledge on that not even Scourge, who sided with the Emperor for 300 years, knows, is really the amount of depravity or the danger to the fullest extent that the Emperor could serve, because there's only one person who has actually gotten close to the Emperor to any degree, and that is Revan. So what we could be seeing with this whole thing is that using the Revanites as he says he sees a resource of willing followers that will do his bidding to the death. Willing soldiers on both sides, giving him a sizable army that he can use to turn against the Emperor, because he really is the only person that recognizes the level of danger that the Emperor poses to the galaxy. And sure, we know the Emperor can consume the galaxy, and that's his goal for eternal life and unlimited power, stereotypically put. But Revan is in that unique position.
So he's pulling a Palpatine?
He's not just pulling... Well, yeah, the Emperor is definitely pulling the Palpatine. Or, actually, in this case, looking at the timeline, Palpatine's pulling the Emperor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But...
You actually see this kind of repetition throughout the Imperial / Sith storyline. I mean, because you see it, you see this with Tenebris, who's the Emperor, and you see it in then you see it in Palpatine later on, and then you also see it in Krayt even further on. You see it in Darth Krayt. So it's kind of a repeating thing that happens. This is where they live forever, where they take over new bodies and that sort of thing. So I think I have to agree that I also think that that Revan is. I think this is Revan. I want it to be honestly.
He's short a few marbles.
He is, and that upsets me a little bit. I'm a little bit disappointed that it is Revan, and because we were Revan in KOTOR, right? We were Revan, and Light
Spoiler for those people that are just starting to play KOTOR.
That's right.
You're Revan, by the way.
You're Revan.
It just came out on iPad how long ago, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So
the 13-year-olds are just playing it for the first time.
Sorry to all the 13-year-olds. But yeah, you have an attachment to this character as a BioWare fan, as a KOTOR fan. There's already this attachment to this character, and then to make him the bad guy and turn him into this kind of thing is a little bit weird to me. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
You want to know why they did it?
Why they do it?
I'll tell you exactly why they did it. Because players asked for it. Players said, we want more Revan content. And they said, okay, cool. Well, we're going to make all the content Revan content. And then that's what happens. Like, you ask for, freeform space, what do you get? You get Galactic Starfighter. You ask for housing, you get a whole housing expansion. You ask for Revan, you get a Revan expansion.
So, bearing that in mind, I don't think that the players were asking for Revan to be the enemy, right? They wanted more Revan content, but they weren't looking to have, the Revan operation boss. They were looking, not necessarily, unless you're Imperial. Imperials might have.
I think what Mike's trying to say with this is this is BioWare's way of saying that in the next expansion, once you defeat Revan, you're going to get a decoration drop of a statue of a big middle finger to the players. This is what you wanted? This is what you wanted? Here you go. Happy now?
That's right. That's right. But along that same lines of giving the players what they're looking for, I feel kind of I'm not sure exactly how to feel about this, because I was really on board with the Tython thing and with with Korriban being attacked, and oh my goodness, this is actually a war going on here, because up to this point we'd been fighting the Dreadmasters, and it's this weird third faction that for some reason we saved them on Belsavis, and now they're our enemies, and that didn't, it was kind of weird as far as from the Imperial side. Of course, on the Republic side, it was just let's kill another Sith, but it was this weird third faction, and not this battle between the Empire and the Republic that we kind of had wanted. And then whenever Forged Alliances came out, and oh my goodness, we're fighting on Korriban and Tython, that is amazing. And then now we've got another third faction. How do you guys feel about that? And this is not what BioWare promised from my perspective.
Look, when they listen to players, they're in such an echo chamber of what they actually hear that they need to get a better filter on it, because they take what they hear and they run off, and then they make these crazy ideas that nobody was even asking for. Well, maybe some of the crazier people were asking for. But,
Road was asking for it. Road was asking for it.
Road was asking for it over there. Look, if you gave us Revan content and Revan wasn't the villain, then we would have had to cooperate with the Empire, and the Republic would have had to cooperate, and you wouldn't have had that little war that you were looking for in Tython and Korriban. Like, they have no good villains left. That's
really?
The problem.
You don't think
Malgus is still out there?
That's right.
I am holding to this. Malgus is alive.
You did not see a body. That's all I'm gonna say.
Didn't.
No.
Well, what if Malgus is impersonating Revan?
What if the entity that is Revan, floating through the Force in some way that only he can because he's Revan, found the body of Malgus floating in an escape pod, about to die? Obviously his spirit's completely beaten because he's lost everything and he's just given up on life. But he has that tie of the Force. The Revan just goes in there and is like, "You're really bald, but I'll take what I can get." Yeah, why not?
No, okay, so here's the situation with, if we take Tython and Korriban as an example, this is what I liked. I liked Tython and Korriban. Now, granted, as we were talking about earlier, I would have liked a hard mode version of these two planets as well, but that's beside the point. Let's if we take Korriban and Tython, which was basically the same thing, just on two different planets, or two different factions. You had, when you went to Tython as an Imperial, you fought the same people, the same mechanically the same people as when you went there as a Republic character. So why can't we have this kind of thing with maybe, I don't know, Darth Mar as the main villain for the Republic side, and Satele Shan as the main villain for the Imperial side, or something like that. You know what I mean? Where it feels,
well, you can't kill women in games.
Well, we won't get
First
into that.
off, the Republic and the Empire need a figure to lead them. They do have to, and you can't just go, head to head and just kill them off, and then for the next expansion go, these are the two top chiefs, and then kill them off. Because at this point, we've already killed off the heads of the other factions several times.
Yeah.
It's already happened several times throughout the stories. And it's just like the exact same thing of having the Empire and the Republic team up together because some greater evil or destructive force that threatens to destroy both.
What can they do at this? What can they do at this point that brings back that feel of a war going on? Because this doesn't feel like a war. This feels like we're all just sitting on our hands waiting for this other weird third faction to do something.
Really, the third faction, it's not even so much the Revanites. The Revanites could, for all intents and purposes, become the new Empire, at least as far as the player character is concerned. Because what it comes right down to is they have this imperial figure, the Emperor himself, the man who desires nothing more than to completely devour the galaxy.
Yeah.
Ready to do so. He's been hiding for the last, 55 levels. No one knows what he's been doing. No one knows where he's at. We've not heard a peep out of him. The only thing we do hear about him from the stories from the Empire side, where people are going, we have no idea what's going on whatsoever. So we need to have some kind of interaction with the Emperor. And the one person that I think that is actually capable of standing up against the Emperor in all his power is Revan. What we could be seeing is this is a setup for 3.0, where we go into it thinking that Revan is in fact the person we need to stop because he is out there causing serious amounts of havoc and problems for everyone involved. But really what it could be is just a lead into the expansion where all 8 players, again, unfortunately have to team up together in some way to defeat the Emperor, who has the Empire like a bunch of sheep falling in behind him, and the Republic trying to take out the Revanites because they don't know any better at this point. So we've got a place for this to go where the Emperor becomes the antagonist, because at some point the Emperor has to fall. And hey, like SWTOR Minor said, why can't we have the whole Sith species just explode with him?
No,
because they
I
are
play
the greatest source of Sith power. Me too, but that doesn't...
All right, that's,
they have to die.
I have theories about that too that I don't we'll have to get into in some other maybe another episode.
Just like the logos too of the different factions.
Yeah, well,
how
all right.
they're reversed.
So that is amazing food for thought. I'm going to definitely have to have you guys back on to talk more about lore and stuff. So anyway, thank you guys for coming. Thank you, chat room. This is I'm going to not switch screens, but right down there you can follow Road at That Road Guy on Twitter. You can also catch him on Torocast every week. What day does the Torocast podcast come out?
We record every Sunday at 2, maybe 2:30, depends on how late I end up being.
All right, and they very first podcast for Tor. It is an amazing podcast. Definitely check that out on Tuesdays. And then SWTOR Minor puts his comments out on Reddit you put them out on Tuesday, right? Or do you put it out on Wednesday?
Whenever they release the patches.
Whenever they release the patches. he updates it constantly on Reddit. You can follow him at SWTOR_minor on Twitter. Be sure to check that out. He has some really cool stuff. Mostly, images are definitely really awesome. Thank you both for coming. I am Larry Everett. You can catch me on Gamebreaker. I write here every single day. I also write on Massively on the Hyperspace Beacon. You can also go to hyperspacebeacon.com. And we are here on the Republic Show every Thursday from here on out until all the Sith species dies. Thank you again for tuning in. We will see you guys next week.